Okay, how you doing, Magic Worlds of the crazy, kooky, Madookie internets? Thank you for coming back yet again to Love Beer Radio. A little bit late today. I was running around. I had a lot of stuff to do today, and it's totally my fault. And I will own it by saying I was the problem. But at the same time, who gives a shit? It's internet radio. Who the fuck's gonna listen anyway? So
yeah, really.
Yeah.
All two of you.
All two of you
listening.
Yeah. So 15 minutes late. 15 minutes. It's not too shabby. So yeah, there you go. So yeah, what's the word, Joe? What's going on? What's new? What's happening?
Nothing really. Working on a history paper for my history of beer class, and I'm actually writing about Lion's Head and Stegmaier.
Really?
Yes, because we needed to pick. Matt's gone, I think. But for the paper, we had to pick a brewery that started before 1970 and kind of fit into the confines of our class. You know, economic factors or like prohibition and all that kind of stuff. And originally, I was just doing Lion's Head, but I felt because I felt it was important to also talk about Stegmaier because
they're kind of
because Lion's Head owns the Stegmaier label. So it's pretty interesting, and there's so much fucking like conflicting information that I'm finding about Lion's Head.
Really?
Like one site is I think it was it was Lion's Head. Like one site that I found said that the name Lion Brewery came about after Prohibition, but the website for Lion's Head says that it was 4 years after the brewery started, which would be 1909. Like,
so there's
both places have like one article that I found had the former president, like there was quotes from him as well. So I'm like, I don't get why their own website is saying 4 years, but a completely different source is saying after Prohibition. You know, I'm like both. It was pretty interesting. Just looking up all this stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird deal when a company doesn't know itself what its history is. It's just kind of what you're saying.
Yeah, like there was at one point, because if you go onto the actual Stegmaier, because they're running two websites. The Stegmaier website has a real nice like history page, and it lays out basically everything from when it was first started, what it was first started as, like all the kind of bouncing around and troubles and shit. The other, jump over to the Lion's Head side, and their About Us is like a 2-paragraph little snippet. And I believe, I'm pretty sure that at one point there was a history page in the same way that the Stegmaier website has, and that has been since removed.
Sounds classy.
Oh yeah, classy as hell.
No.
So.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if anything happened this week really of note. I don't know. Yeah, nothing. Just living the dream, pretty much. Other than that, I'm trying to think of anything else. News-wise, the big fucking news, Firestone Walker. You read that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a similar move to, for people who don't know, Firestone Walker was sold a controlling stake of their business to Duvel Morgat, which has happened before, to Boulevard. Duvel Morgat owns Omegang outright. It's kind of like when the owners of that wanted to sell, they sold, and that was forever ago.
That was very early on.
Yeah.
in Omegang's life that they were sold to Duvel.
Yeah, and then but that was more like, hey, we want to sell this. They bought it. Whereas Boulevard, Omegang or no Omegang, Duvel Morgat bought not a controlling share, but a portion of Boulevard. It's not an outright buy. And when that originally went down, people were like, "Oh my God, shit's gonna change." Boulevard's gonna suck. But here we are. I think we're approaching almost 2 years later. I think if I'm
about 2 or 3 years, I'd say.
Yeah, and nothing has changed, and no one has talked ill of Duvel. So, which is one of the reasons why this kind of went over. People were like, "Oh my God, I didn't really see it coming." I was talking to my buddy Derek today. He's like, I guess Budweiser is trying to, AB InBev was trying to actually purchase Firestone Walker.
Yeah, I read that. I think it was not a very good.
Yeah, it was a hostile takeover kind of deal, and they were fighting it. But at the same time, Firestone Walker is maxed out as far as capacity and what they could do. So it was more like Duvel coming in, kind of shielding them from a hostile takeover.
Yeah, and I think there was quite a bit of backlash from the AB InBev side to a point of where Firestone Walker pulled themselves out of any AB InBev distributor.
Really?
That's what I only read that from one article, so I'm not sure exactly how true it is, but that's it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. So I mean, it's one of those things where
I think this whole thing I think really ties in pretty well to what we're talking about today, with like beer culture.
Yeah.
But let me post on Facebook that we're live, and then we'll get into. I'll lay out what we're talking about.
The traditional Joseph layout. That would be.
Yes.
You cannot have the show without the Joe layout. That's pretty
absolutely.
Much
so, like I said, we're talking about beer culture, kind of and products. Then we'll be reviewing Victory's Storm King. Just one beer that I don't think I've reviewed at all or had in quite some time. And then,
I'm going to tell you right now. I know the exact last time I had this beer, and that was in November. And before that, it was years. But I had it on draft at a bar, and then, so I was like,
okay. Then we're going to finish up the show talking about styles that we think are either on the rise or that are kind of dropping off, which I don't know if we've talked about before. I think we were going to and skipped it. We were kind of debating that last night. But we'll talk about it anyway.
Yeah, so suck it if you don't like us talking about it. So there you
go. So what I think going back to the Firestone Walker Duvel thing, you don't really hear the same kind of outcry that that you heard when Goose Island was bought by AB InBev. No one's raising their hands in a like a protest or calling for a boycott of any Firestone Walker products.
Oh yeah, no, not at all.
I think that's really, I think that kind of came about from seeing what's happened with the Boulevard deal being under Duvel. I think that kind of cleared everyone's head and was like, okay, when they say they're not going to fuck shit up, they're true.
They mean it. Yeah,
they really mean it.
There's a track record now, so it's not like it's people are like, okay, pump. You don't have to fucking pump the brakes, buddy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're not going to come in there and turn it into fucking Duvel West. You know what I mean? It's going to be fucking.
Yeah, really.
They're basically, from what I know, and I'm the outside of outsiders. I don't know fucking shit from a shingle half the time when it comes to whatever. But from what I see, they pretty much went into fucking Boulevard and said, okay, if you need anything, let us know. You know what I mean? That's pretty much how it worked. So,
yeah, really.
So yeah,
I don't know if there's the same kind of deal where I would assume not, because like when you look at like Goose Island, all of Goose Island's like more year-round products are made everywhere that that kind of Budweiser makes different, like any like kind of subsidiary brewery of AB InBev. You know, they now make the like Goose Island year-round stuff to a point of where the Labatt Brewery in London, Ontario, had Goose IPA on tap.
Well, and that's the
that's
difference.
That's kind of with like that didn't happen. I don't think that happens with Duvel. I think you'll have a wider distribution area, but not to the point of where like, all right, we're gonna now make your things here, and here. You know?
Yeah. It definitely seems that way. That it's going to be, you know, with the, like you were saying, Goose Island. Like they're basically, I believe it's the Bourbon County line, and maybe a couple of the other ones, like their big Belgian offerings, are still in Chicago. But other than that, I think their base stuff, their 312 and all that stuff is. I think 312 is brewed out of New York. You know what I mean? Like I think
it's brewed like I said, I think it's brewed just about everywhere.
Yeah,
like it's brewed across the country now, I believe.
So it's one of those things where in the grand scheme of things, with the whole Firestone Walker Duvel thing, I think the only thing you're going to see is more availability, which never is a fucking shitty thing. Which is what you saw with Goose Island, Bourbon County. Even the Bourbon County line that's produced in Chicago, you're still seeing bigger distribution, but it's a little bit different of a business model. It's a little bit more hands off. It seems like from Duvel. So, you know, take it with a grain of salt, you know, scream all you want, freak out. But the grand scheme of things is we don't really get Firestone Walker up here, you know, in northeastern Pennsylvania. It comes to Philly. It kind of trickles out here and there, but then that's about it. You know, 2 years from now.
The farthest outside of Philly that I've seen Firestone Walker products, and that's even along the same lines as Russian River products, is this little place in Reading called Mari's Six Pack.
Okay.
And that's like, I kind of call Reading like the outskirts of the Philly market. You know.
Yeah, it's a decent distance away, but it's not super far. But it's one of those things where, like, from track record, knowing what's going on, worst case scenario, we're gonna get not only Firestone Walker products, but maybe, you know, bigger offerings from them. So kudos, you know, hey, more beer for us. That's all I know.
Yeah, really.
So yeah, awesome. Trying to think any other new stuff. What was the other one? There was another one I don't know why I'm spacing on it right now. Jesus Christ, I hate when that happens. Damn, I had a good one. Talk so I can think.
All right. What are you?
Or you can just dive right into the subject matter. I don't care. Yeah.
You start. I always start off with the subject matter. You take the reins. Conversation today.
Take the reins, baby. Okay, fair enough. Well, here's the deal. I mean, as far as what I remember and what I'm reading right now, because I have to read the notes in order to know what the fuck I'm talking about. Just what I actually don't write notes for the show. I just look at what we're supposed to talk about and just ramble. I'm sure that's fucking readily apparent.
Yeah, actually it is.
First topic, beer culture. Beer culture. Now let's do this. Before we dive into it, what do you have a specific definition of what we're going to talk about today with that, or is it just fucking open season?
It's half and half. I think it's not so much beer trends. You know, we've already talked about that. I think we should look kind of at the bigger beers, the bigger breweries, your macro stuff, and kind of their response to the kind of the rise of craft beer. You know, every now and again we see Budweiser puts out some dumbass tweet where they're jabbing at like craft beer.
Okay.
Know?
Okay.
Along those lines.
With that in mind, this is pretty much my take on fucking beer trends. Beer trends, and actually, I shouldn't even say beer trends. It's pretty much all trends in the world. There's always a pacemaker. There's a person that's out front that is fucking setting the pace. That's leading the pack, and you know what I mean. And then there's people right behind them. Now, here's the thing, and this is total fucking track analogy. So if you never ran track or don't know anything about track, then you might get screwed. But when you run like a long distance run, whether it be a fucking marathon or cross country or just long distance track, there's the person who usually fucking sets the pace rarely wins the fucking race. Okay, and there's people that know that the pace and tempo in which they run, and they usually are kind of about towards the front of the pack, but not really in the lead. And then what you have is people in the back of the pack who are just like never even. I mean, sometimes there's a person from way in the back that fucking surprises everybody. But for the most part, they're just people that are good enough to be in a fucking race. Okay. And it's kind of how beer works. There, you know what I mean? Beer trends typically go, you have this small style brewery, and right now what it is New England unfiltered hazy IPAs and fucking saisons. That's the front runner. You know what I mean? That's the beer. That's the race that's being run right now, as far as I'm concerned. And funky stuff like fucking sours and shit are kind of like I think that's secondary.
I think that's kind of falling, into my little split.
But
essentially being more of a niche market, but still, it's the thing that people are really looking for. And I think we mentioned it before. Like, this is a lot of people are now getting into beer through these outlets, through like your big saisons and your IPAs and all that still kind of IPAs, but definitely I'd say more on the sour or even funkier.
Well, see, that's where I would disagree. But get back to my analogy, just so I can kind of fucking show it all the way through.
Close out your analogy.
Yeah, well, just kind of make it go full circle so it makes sense. Because they're like, wait, they started talking about track and just stopped talking about it. So then you have like,
I don't think anyone would mind.
It basically, no, they would, because this makes sense, baby. What happens is the pace. The person that leads the race sets the pace, but it's usually the person that sets the pace rarely comes out on top, like I said. And then you have the actual like straight up like top tier professionals who use that pace to their advantage. They'll sit back, they wait, and then they pounce. And that's kind of what's happening with whether it be sours, whether it be saisons, whether it be your unfiltered New England IPA bullshit. Like, they're just sitting back there. And they're actually not even sitting back there. They're out with that shit already. And then you have Big Beer, who's that person in the back who's just in the race because he's allowed to be. He's grandfathered in. He's cool. Everybody's cool with him being in a race. So eventually you're going to see these unfiltered your IPAs, your saisons, your sour beers actually come from bigger beer, whether it's through the back door of companies like AB InBev or Duvel Morgat on a smaller scale, or Miller Coors, Sapporo, whatever you want to call them. It'll eventually get there. But as far as the life cycle goes down, like, the hazy New England IPA thing is starting to get into bigger companies. You're starting to see them in your, not huge companies, but bigger companies. You're starting to see them in your Great Lakes. You're starting to see them in your big, like, quote unquote, semi big companies. And then you're going to start to see the big guys follow suit. And I'm totally losing my train of thought. I don't know why, but yeah, that's what happens when you don't have notes. But it's cyclical. It's basically that happens and a new style kind of jumps up, and then that happens. And to me, where that whole like uber new school tropical hazy IPA thing is already from the beginning, the front runner to the middle brewery to now, it's not really at the huge breweries yet, but it'll eventually get there. Now you're starting to see wild ale, not necessarily sour, because we think sour is going to be very niche, but you're starting to see these funky beers come out that are starting to gain momentum and starting to kind of, okay, now these beers are coming out, and not even to that extent. You're starting to see these interesting beers. Perfect example. Let's go with this. A local brewery to us, semi-local brewery to us, if you are in Pennsylvania but you're in Canada right now, is a brewery called Carton. They're out of New Jersey. They produce a bunch of really nice beers, a bunch of really decent IPAs and stuff like that. One of the beers they produce is their coffee beer, their regular coffee, stuff like that. And basically what it is basically it's just a cream ale that kind of has this thing going on with like, you know, this kind of coffee flavor, but at the same time there's like nice vanilla notes and all this stuff going on in it. And last week I got a like advanced bottle of Ballast Point's Victory at Sea, I think it was what it was called. Not the Victory at Sea. What's the other one? Calm Before the Storm. And to me, that is almost a direct response to those carton beers. Like it tastes like to me, it tastes like Ballast Point tasted that beer and went, there's a market for this. Okay, let's get our people on this and let's devise something.
I know very little about carton, so I actually didn't know that beer existed before Ballast Point.
So it was the super hot beer of last year. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So
yeah, and I kind of saw the Calm Before the Storm go in my mind without knowing about the carton beer. Yeah. It was like, oh yeah, you know, Victory at Sea is really nice. Let's make those same flavors, but dial it down a little bit. You know.
And to me, what it was more like, hey, these people are making this beer that people are literally clamoring over. They're like last year, if you wanted a coffee, regular coffee, whatever from carton, it was kind of like, you know, a trade baity situation. You had to fucking get it from somebody who knew or somebody already got it, yada, yada, yada. That's super hard to get. I mean, for us being so close to Jersey, but it was one of those things where you kind of had to go out of your way to get it. And to me, it was more like someone from Ballast Point being like, listen, you know, we make Victory at Sea. What if we took those same flavor profiles, your coffee, your vanilla, things like that, and just put it into like a dialed back cream ale? And to me, and I could be totally wrong. This beer could have been.
That's kind of like what I just said.
No.
Look at like we have Victory at Sea. Let's take those same flavors and dial it back into a cream ale.
No, see, no, that's not. It's literally opposite of what you said. What I said was
not.
No. Yes, it is. What it was. See, okay, this is what I just heard from you. This is what I just heard from you. Listen, what I heard from you was, Ballast Point had Victory at Sea, and independently, with never knowing of carton whatsoever, because that's how you led into the conversation. Yeah, decided to scale back this beer and make a smaller Victory at Sea. My angle is Ballast Point makes Victory at Sea. Tries the carton beer, goes, wait a minute, I think we could do something with this, and goes, wait, this is kind of like our the Victory at Sea, but a smaller cream ale version. Let's take that recipe and scale it back in a cream ale version. To me, it's them independently coming up with the idea, and my angle is them tasting, going, we can do something with this. What do we have in the works that we can scale back or do something with? That's the difference. And again, this is me just specking and just throwing shit out there. For all I know, fucking Calm Before the Storm could have been in production before carton fucking existed. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's me speculation, throwing shit against the walls and see if it sticks. But that's kind of where I saw it come from, personally, from taste. Yeah.
I mean, I have never had a beer from carton and have not gotten to try the Calm Before the Storm yet. So. I'm just kind of also speculating as well.
So, I mean, to just wrap up the whole fucking track analogy.
Yeah, you still got to end that.
Hey, just because you never ran track, buddy, it's your problem.
Do I look like I would ever?
Do I look like I did? I was awesome in high school, baby. Al Bundy right here, sucker. Yeah. I scored 19 touchdowns for Polk High. But. The thing is, it seems like a cyclical cycle of the person that finds something, and this is not just beer, it's music, it's food, it's whatever. Somebody comes up with a great idea, somebody takes that idea and makes it fan-fucking-tastic, and then a big corporation, what do you want to call it, rides the wake of that with a product of their own till it dies out and then rinse repeat. And that's kind of like, to me, where that's coming from now. That's like apparent beer culture. Like there's always going to be like I don't give a shit brewers that just do whatever the fuck they want, whenever the fuck they want to do it.
Yeah.
And they'll fall into that line at some point or another, but no fault of their own. They just happen to be part of the making a beer that is whatever. But yeah, that's.
I think if there's any, off the top of my head, if there's any brewery that's very much, we don't give a fuck like it, it's Hair of the Dog. I feel like just from what I've heard about like their own like customer service is like, fuck you, we're done. Like this is the beer we have. If it's uncarbonated, fuck yourself. It's uncarbonated, you know.
Well, actually, I've never had anything from them before until today. When I did
Hair
the
of
reading.
the Dog.
No. Let me finish my sentence, and it makes sense, baby. I never had anything from them before till today. But today on the radio show we did Heretic, which is Jamil. I forget. I don't want to pronounce
Zanishev or something.
Yeah, Zanishev. Like and just from doing research for the show and then trying the beers, he seems like he seemed like the person that like didn't want to have a brewery, but just got so big to the point where he kind of had to open one. Like most people start, home. I don't want to say home brewing, but home brewing on a fucking serious scale, or open a brew pub or whatever, and be like, okay, one day I'm gonna have a brewery. They're just genuinely from talking to him and reading what I've read and looking into it. It seems like he just got to the point where he's, I don't want to say super big, but he had to open up a brewery. It was just a natural progression of things. So the beers that I had today, which I've never had any of them before, definitely were the most interesting of beers I've had in a while. I would actually like Heretic. I would put in the same classification with Duda CL. As far as interesting, as far as my dumbass fucking retarded palate goes. Like it was so interesting. Like the 8% double IPA tasted like a 2% dry hop Pilsner, but in a good way. The 7% hazelnut porter tasted like a 12% fucking stout. No, porter, 12% Imperial porter with hazelnut flakes in it. You know what I mean? Like it was just it was very homebrew. You know what I mean? That's the point I'm getting at, is that you have these home brewers or just breweries in general, because everybody starts off in homebrew. No one just goes, I'm going to open up a gigantic brewery and do whatever I want, unless you're SBC. Like because it's true. Yep. It was cool. It's cool to try that. So there are, exceptions to the rule, but they are exceptions to the rule. So what's your definition?
Yeah. Oh, I thought you cut out there for a second.
No, I just said what's your definition? Yeah. What's your idea?
I've never had anything from Heretic either. But I'll have to listen to that episode. But I kind of see where you're getting. I feel like there are kind of these breweries that I think there's almost two classes. There's the breweries that wanted to get super big and blew up, and then there's the breweries that don't really care, and I think Heretic, just from what you're saying, is on the side of, I now have, like, I don't care if this brewery takes off, it takes off. It's all kind of secondary. It seemed like you were saying he's almost forced into actually having a brewery. But all the beers that you were describing sound super fucking interesting. I know very, very little about both Heretic and Jamil Zanishev.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you get a chance, man, like, as far as like, have you ever talked or have you ever listened to any of his shit?
No, but there's a book that I think
there's two of them. There's a yeast book, and then there's 80 beers you can brew at home kind of deal.
Yeah,
he has two of those.
I think my friend Ian has I think it's the 80. I don't know if there's a sour book that he did as well, or at least helped in. But I think he definitely has the like 80 beers to brew it at home.
Yeah, but as
That's
far
what
as like,
having that book.
but as far as like him, he whatchamacallit, if you're gonna like, I would totally suggest, after doing research, because I didn't know much, because I mean, you absolutely come from homebrew infinitely deeper than I would, you know, whatever. But yeah, you should. He does 2 podcasts. Here's the crazy part: he opened a brewery. He writes an article every week. He has 2 individual podcasts every week, and runs a fucking brewery. Like, how is that possible? Do you know what I mean? Like, and the brewery's only like 3 years old. So it's like one of those things where it's like crazy. But his podcast, I listened to him this week because he was coming on just to kind of get a feel for what he's like, and it's super good stuff. I mean, it's very informative. It's very homebrew skewed. Like, the show's just talking about beer, but like the one it just breaks down a style every single. Let's put it this way: he set out to win a medal in every single BJCP style ever, and he did it all gold.
Wow.
Yeah, so he's won a gold in every BJCP style ever.
That's
now, if you just look at the amount of styles listed in that's but not just the amount of styles that listed, winning a medal, not winning a medal, but winning a gold, but also making enough beer to win a gold, to where you're not going to win a gold with every fucking beer you make. Mm-hmm. That's fucking kooky madookie shit.
Yeah, that is really fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's definitely a good resource.
Yeah, I would probably have to listen to that podcast. I do enjoy listening to very. I don't listen to a lot of beer podcasts, so I think this is definitely one that I'm gonna have to add.
Nice. So where do we go from here?
I think, as far as beer culture, let's talk about sours for a minute. Because I don't know if that's so much beer culture as it is. Well, it kind of is. But it's also a little bit of like brewing culture as well. You know, actually making beers that are sour instead of accidentally making beers that are sour. I'm like using different.
There's a big fucking difference.
Yeah, there is.
And you can tell. You can tell. I can fucking tell.
Yeah. But then also using different bacterias and different stuff that like I don't want to say the like old guard of brewing are like still terrified of, you know. And I think once, you know, it's kind of starting to happen in a way, but I think once people go, okay, we can do this to success and not fuck up everything else, you know. I think that's going to be the like when sours really start coming out,
start taking off. See, I never think I don't think sours will ever be like a huge thing, and that's just my personal palate and what I like to drink and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, I think there's definitely going to be a tipping point, because I think in the States now, like we have this kind of mentality where everything needs to be bigger than the last thing we just did. So, and that's, you know, each hoppy beer needs to be hoppier than the last one. Any high ABV beer needs to be higher than the last one. And now it's going to go into each sour needs to be more sour than the last. And I think there's going to be a tipping point that comes when people are just be like, all right, let's call it a day. Like, this is sour enough. Let's just make something that's, yes, sour, but still, you know, enjoyable. You know, and I think that'll kind of be another aspect. So it's like a two-way kind of a two-way thing where one side is the consumer, and then the other side are the brewers. You know, when I think when the consumer side of it goes, enough is enough already. This sour is good. Keep doing this, instead of we want more now. And then the brewing side going, fuck, we have to make it even more like just fucking acid.
Yeah, I mean, like, and I get it. You know what I mean? Like, your buddy, he's a sour junkie, and I have people that, like, I know, you know, coming from Belgian background, there's a lot of people that are in the sours because it's a style that's been around for a long time, and I can get down with them. I totally can. Like, it works for me, but only to a certain extent, man. Like, I just, yeah.
I've had one beer from Cascade. I don't need to try anything else from Cascade.
Because you want to keep your teeth.
It is hard. Nothing against Cascade, but they make heartburn juice. That's all it is. It's so fucking sour. There's nothing else there. It's just sour. And like, where does it fucking end? You know, I like, one of my first sours, real sours, was Sour in the Rye, and I really liked that. I liked that I wasn't acclimated to the sour after a while. You know, it was sour with each sip, but for me, it was a tolerable amount of acidity, to where, this is good. I can drink more of this instead of, in a glass, like, this little bit is good enough and I'm now done. I don't need anything else. So like I said, I now never have to have another product from Cascade. That and they're like $50 a fucking bottle, which is
and here's the thing though. You should, though, because I'm going to tell you right now. 2 weeks ago, I had a Cascade beer, and it was their cherry sour. It was like something Rouge. I forget what it was called, and I liked
Sans
it.
Rouge or something like that.
Yeah, and I liked it a lot. It was not super sour though. That's the thing. Huh. It was like I was like, okay, it's all right. You know what I mean? But everything I've heard about Cascade is like literally like, you know what I mean? Like, buy a Cascade. Make a fucking dental appointment. Drink it the day before you go to your dentist appointment, because there's going to be fucking rubble in your fucking mouth. You know what I mean? Like, that's typically what
it's going to wear your teeth away. Yeah. You'll be done.
So, as far as trends go, as far as breweries go, I did the whole fucking Dragon Energy thing, but it's also like a lot of Saison, a lot of bitter sour, hazy IPA stuff. But here's the thing. I'm super excited because of these trends. Because if you strip down a hazy IPA, or a New England hazy IPA, I should say, or you strip down a Saison, or you strip down a sour, they're all fucking leading to Belgium, baby. They're all fucking leading there. Because you're talking about unfiltered bottle condition. That's fucking Belgium. You're talking about fucking Saisons. Yeah, that's fucking Belgium and France. And then you're talking about fucking sours, same fucking deal. It's all, and this is the trend that's fucking making me so excited, because I can see 15 years in the future, the beers that I love started drinking when I got into beers are going to be the fucking big beers. Yeah. These are going to be like the style.
Yeah. And I think we talked about, things that we people kind of overlook. And I definitely think Belgian beer is something that a lot of people overlook. But
it's criminally overlooked.
Yeah. But as, more people get into Saisons and typically more yeast-driven beers, they're going to have to go into the Belgian side of things and just kind of see what's there that they can enjoy.
And it fits like nice and tight in this little fucking like world of my brain because it's like the whole like there's a front runner, then there's the big boy, then there's whatever. And by front runner, it's not a negative sense. There's always going to be smaller-ish breweries. I'm not saying when you're talking about a front runner, I'm not talking about it in a negative sense. But there's like even now, I posted a review this week and put up a couple of reviews, and I have a couple of reviews in the shoot of a brewery close to us. It's Dry Lag. Did you have anything from Dry Lag yet?
I haven't.
They're right out of Pittsburgh, Millvale, Pennsylvania, right out of Pittsburgh, and they make they're super Belgian influenced. They make Belgian Goldens, triples, Belgian Crew, barley wine, the whole nine.
Stuff with Brett.
Yes, they're all about wild. They do base stuff, but they're also about funkiness, Brett, wild yeast, stuff like that. And I can kind of see they're coming into it right at the right time because they're probably gonna be big enough to be in the game when that shit explodes in 15 to 20 years. That's my just random guesstimate. Okay, 15, 20 years, the cyclical cycle. I got into Belgians in 15 years. Again, I'm going to go back to the beers that I originally got into. Well, I always drink them now.
Yeah.
I drank an Orval last night, which still sucks, but it'll be the whatever soup du jour of the fucking beer world. But they do so many funky things with Belgian beers, with base beers, with nice yeast. But they also do I had an old ale. It's called just Crew. That's what they call it. It's it's like an ale brewed with a really sourish tendency wild yeast. But it was cool, fresh. But you could totally tell that it's going to be this great thing in a couple of years. I get a Belgian. They had a Belgian influenced barley wine brewed with bread, I believe. That was crazy. The Havocan, which Amanda gave me a year or so ago, and just all these cool beers coming out of there. And that's where I see, you have Wicked Weed making a bunch of sours down south that are Belgian influence. You have all these breweries that kind of smaller breweries kind of popping up doing all this cool shit with yeast. And I think it's gonna be a glorious 2026, 2032. That's my guess.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see a lot of, and this I think can kind of fall into our later topic of what's kind of dropping off and what's on the rise. I think your more hop-driven beers, I think they're going to start to fade a little bit more. For example, before my break a couple weeks ago, I went into a local homebrew shop and I was just picking up stuff that I needed, and I picked up a couple packets of Cascade hops, and the guy's like, might have a problem getting Cascade in the future. I'm like, I really don't care. I'm like, it's a beer, it's a hop that I use just to say that there's hops in a beer. He's like, yeah, you and a lot of other people. I'm like, no, you don't understand how much I don't care. I'm like, I'm already thinking of switching in a lot of my bigger beers, switching to a different hop, so it's but I think that along those same lines, I think a lot of, as more and more things are harder to get, I think we're gonna switch focus from hops to more yeast-driven beers, or even more malt-driven beers.
Yeah, and that's pretty much just in line with the whole USA versus Europe thing, because that was pretty much how it worked. You know what I mean? America, United States, and other places, but predominantly the United States, kind of cut their cloth on these crazy hop forward beers. And I don't want to go douchebag here, but that nuance of the yeast has been, and we've talked about it before. I've touched on it before in previous shows. The nuance of the yeast has just been kind of left behind, and it just seems like a natural progression. But at the same time, again, I'm going to say cyclical 70 times because I like saying the word.
Start the counter now.
Yeah.
It's a drinking game. Every time that to the one person that's watching, it's now a drinking game.
Yes.
Every time Matt says
you have to chug a Cascade. You have to chug a Cascade every time. And then you'll die. But it's true, man. Because there's only so many directions. I mean, you have your malt, yeast, hops, and whatever beyond that, whatever you want to call it, whether adjunct or non-adjunct. It's not like someone's going to come out with I mean, maybe they will in the future. I don't know, but it's probably not going to be like additional core elements beyond that. So it's definitely going to be a cycle, because it's almost like a marathon palate fatigue. It's like everybody's into this beer, and then they get desensitized to that beer, and then they want to go to another beer, and then another beer, and by the time you get to like a fourth or fifth beer, then they've been undesensitized, if that's even a fucking word, to the IPAs, and then cycle back in it. You know what I mean? It's just just makes sense.
I mean, literally every single time that I review an IPA, I note how it's not bitter to me. And that's something that over time, I really got into beer through hoppy beers. So over time, my palate's been adjusted to, it needs to fucking be essentially like hop resin before I even really notice any bitterness there. And I say that every single time. I'm like, oh, this is even. I just did an Oktoberfest for school, and a couple friends were like, oh yeah, this is.
I saw that. Can you get me a bottle? Do I have an in on that? Can you get me a bottle?
Yeah, I can get you a bottle. No problem.
Yeah.
A couple of my friends were like, oh yeah, this is actually fairly hoppy. I'm like, really? Because no, it's fucking not. Like I upped the hops in my recipe, and it was still, for me, not very hoppy, Yeah. But I've been drinking water all day and have to piss like you wouldn't believe. I will be
Joseph, with your urine and stuff. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, we're just talking about trends, beer trends going into it. I went through the whole, like, what is coming out now, or what's going out now, as far as your uber hazy Vermont IPAs. It's still building, but it's still like, just kind of, it's peaking. It's going to go from there. And then I'm like, okay, your Saison seems like it's a big thing now. Some I like, some I don't like, but it's a big thing regardless. And then sours are always kind of out there. It's like, I like to associate sours with soccer in American culture, because sours are always like that thing where like, oh, sours are going to take off, man. It's like the same exact thing as soccer. It's like, oh, soccer is going to take off. You're talking to a card-carrying Arsenal club member here. I have Arsenal tattoos on me. I love soccer. And I love it. And I've seen it for... Yeah, I have their mantra tattooed in lettering across my chest, Victoria Concordia Crescent, which means harmony through victory. But the thing is, it's just, you see it all the time, like every couple of years. Oh, soccer, next big sport. You know what I mean? And 2 years later, soccer's gonna blow up now. And then you're like, oh, soccer. It's like, that's what sours are. That's just, sours are gonna blow up. And then like 2 years later, oh, sours are coming, baby. And then 2 years later, no, the sours are gonna blow up this year. It's like, they're never going to go away. They have a widely fervent fan base, and people love them. But just, they're sours. So let's dive into some review stuff. This review. So we're doing Victory Storm King. I had this I'm going to say about 8 to 10 months ago. Joe, you can't even remember.
Yeah, I haven't had it for a while.
Yeah, so it's a Victory Storm King Imperial Stout. Victory Brewing. From right outside Philly.
Yeah.
And on the side here it says, emerging from the deepest shades of darkness, a rolling crescendo of flavors burst forth from this robust stout. The thickening hoppy appeal of Storm King subsides into it. Thundering? Yeah, don't correct me, motherfucker. Just people, if you don't correct me, people assume I'm right. So anyway, settles of roasted. No, because I'm never right. Settles on the people. You just correct me every 2 seconds. Roasted malt exhibiting an espresso like depth of character in its finish and exquisite blend of imported malts and hop flour American merge. Something skipped there. I don't give a shit. Harmoniously in this complex ale, discovered the dark intrigue of Storm King as it reveals the rich, substantial flavors that it holds within. Cheers. So there you go. Yeah. So yeah, it's a hop forward.
Is there an enjoy by date on the side of your bottle? Because mine says November 14th of 2019.
Where do you see it?
It's on the. It's like right by the barcode.
Label or neck?
Label.
Enjoy by 2020.
Huh.
Mine is relatively new because I drank my Storm King when I was really drunk and don't remember, and had to pick another one up yesterday. So there you go.
Classic.
So I'm trying to use a Swiss Army knife bottle opener, which probably isn't going to work out all that well. Okay, let me get a regular one. But go ahead.
All right. So pours out. It's exactly like a stout. You probably had a similar bottle to mine when you drunkenly.
Yeah, yeah, of course, because I think we bought it about the same time, maybe, or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, it might top my mic go over. Nope.
Is it gonna?
Nah, that's good. Yeah, I almost poured the whole. I'll make it overflow if I want.
The head on yours looks like it's gonna stick around for quite some time. Mine kind of looks like a glass of Coke right now.
Yeah, mine looks like it has slight nose on it, just a little. No, slight nose, a slight head on it, just a little bit, just 18 fingers ahead.
You know? Yeah, just an entire hand.
It's dark. It's slightly opaque. It has a nice khaki-colored head, decently creamy top. Let's see what the nose has to offer. All right. Roasted malts and hops.
Yeah,
that's literally roasted malts at the wazoo and I want to say three quarter pine, but just a little bit of citrus maybe going on.
I'm getting more like an earthy kind of hop, like a little bit more earthy or spicy.
Yeah, it's nice. It smells like a hop forward Russian Imperial. That's what it smells like to me. Like your old Rasputin, that kind of angle of beer. So yeah, she smells like a stout. She smells hoppy, but it's stouty. Stouty, technical term.
The proper reviewing lingo there. Stouty.
Yes, stouty. Yes. So yeah, dive in. Cheers. Mine is nice creamy mouthfeel.
Yeah, very creamy.
Huge hop presence. I mean, we're dealing with a definite difference in fucking Best By dates. What was yours again?
November 14th, 2019.
Yeah. Okay, so no, actually, you know what? We're not that far off. I'm just assuming we're only about 4 months off. Yeah, I'm getting yeah, hop, earthy hop, like you said. A little bit of pine, decent creamy mouthfeel, but a little roasted malt, and that's about it. Pretty uninspiring, actually.
The second sip, the mouthfeel is a touch thin. But yeah, very earthy, very spicy. Kind of verging on a little too roasty for my taste.
If you were to blind taste test this with me and you poured it into a glass and you said, drink this and tell me what this is, I would say this is like a black IPA, like a Cascadian ale. Like it's not, to me, this is not a stout. It's more black IPA to me.
So I would disagree. Because for me, a lot of black IPAs, or what people would call black IPAs, are just like slightly hoppier porters.
Yeah.
So you like my favorite black IPA is Wookie Jack, and that's a lot of orange, way more citrus. I don't really think in a black IPA, I don't really think earthy. I don't really think pine. So this is definitely more hoppy stout to me. It's not bad. I mean,
but that's the thing. Like, black IPA is a fucking controversial beer style.
Absolutely.
It's a Cascadian ale, hoppy black IPA. It's really just a style that has been filled through ambivalence. Like, you're just like, okay, what kind of beer is this? A hoppy black IPA?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and that's where this kind of falls for me. It's not, to me, it's not a stout, but it's hop forward. It's black. It's got roasted malts and touch of chocolate. It's kind of a black Cascadian IPA-ish beer. I wouldn't have, if you sat this in front of me and said, drink this, and be like, stout would not come to my mind.
Yeah, I don't think blind stout would come to mind for me either. I wouldn't go full into black IPA. I might even be like, oh, this is kind of a like porter-ish, more hop forward thing. How do you think this would age, since our enjoy by dates are
relatively fresh?
Years?
It says enjoy by 2020, so I'm assuming this came out 2015. Wait, January. I assume they came out. Mine came out 2015. Yours came out the bare end of 2014. So they're relatively fresh. How do I think this would age? I think it would get better with age because it would drop out the way I'd want it to drop out, but I don't think necessarily it would become a better beer with age. I think the hop profile would drop out. I think you'd get a little bit. The body might pick up a little bit. You might get a little bit of sweetness out of it that's just not there, or more sweetness out of it because the bittering hops died out.
Yeah.
But I don't see this. Actually, you know what? You talk. I'm going to look something up.
Okay. Personally, I agree with you. I think the over time, the hop will definitely drop. Do I think it could last 4 to 5 years? Probably not. The alcohol, it is 9.1%. I think there's enough bitterness there that it could last a few years. But for me, I think I don't know if that body is going to pick up. It might get a little bit sweeter, that kind of roastiness that I'm not really digging. I think that could drop out a little bit. But will a better beer come out of this? I don't think so.
The reason why I was like, okay, you talk. I'm gonna look stuff up. Mm-hmm. I actually am lying. I have had Storm King, not too long ago.
Yeah.
And it was an old bottle though, and I'm trying to look to see what I graded it as.
I actually think I have an old. I might still drink it, but I think I have a bottle of Storm King still in the cellar.
But here's the thing: the Storm King I had, it was a 750, and I think it was at like 8 years old. So it was like a super aged bottle of it, and I think I liked it. But at the same time, I think was
it Storm King? I didn't know they put or was it that Dark Intrigue?
It might have been Dark Intrigue, which is the lead in to Storm King. So you might be right there.
No, Dark Intrigue is the barrel, like their barrel age Storm King.
And that's probably it, actually. That's probably why it's like I don't remember exactly where it came from, because I probably remember reading the label.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Dark Intrigue. So there you go. Joe solves the puzzle.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, rating wise, as far as just overall enjoyment, 82. Thin, like has a creaminess to it, but like you said, after the first sip, kind of thin. Way too hop forward for me.
Yeah,
Other
it's
than
actually
that,
I feel like it's kind of hop forward to the point of being a little hot. You know, there's like a little bit of a burn, and I don't think it's the alcohol that I'm getting the burn from.
yeah, it's just 82 because it's not a bad beer. It's just not for me, but at the same time, I'm going to rate it what I think it is in general. I mean, it's not badly made. It's just not for me.
Yeah, I'd probably go B minus. I think if the body itself was upped and the hop profile was scaled back a little bit, it would push it up for me. In like the high way range, not near A plus. But Victory for me, they're a brewery that I appreciate more because I don't live in Pennsylvania anymore. You know, it was the brewery that I literally walked by every single day that I went to buy beer and was like, I could always get that. I don't need to pick up anything. And now it's like I go and I even would I'd skip over Trogs and Weyerbacher to pick up some stuff from Victory. Yeah.
And that's actually like something cool to talk about maybe now or in the future, the whole trend thing. Like, actually, we'd save that for another show. Like, what we take advantage in beer world.
And I'm very now I'm very vocal in the fact that I took complete advantage of Victory, and now that I can't get it, I'm like I really want it.
It's one of those things, man. You want what you want, and when you have it all the time, you almost just like second guess it and just be like, You're like,
also the same thing with like Trogs and Weyerbacher. I'm like, fuck it, I could always get that beer.
Yeah.
You know?
Now you can.
Yeah.
Or just only every month. That's how greedy you are. Oh, I can't have it, but for a month.
Like all the time, you know. Yes.
Okay, so let's dive into the second half of this sucker.
Yeah, styles that we kind of I think we started touching on it a little bit.
We're honestly, dude, we're going the same thing here. We're gonna go Belgian. I think we already touched on it slightly.
I think other things. One kind of thing that I see coming up is the whole like cask conditioning of beer, but at the same time, every single time you see someone tapping a cask, and it's nothing against them, it's always we're gonna do something fucking crazy. And it's like, here's our beer, we've now added a ton of fruit or a ton of spices or a ton of whatever to it, and now here you go.
Cast night is fucking wing night. Do you know what I mean? Like it's like we're doing a cast tonight. Be like, okay, we want to get people in the door. Not saying cast is bad. I like it. I enjoy it.
Yeah.
And I like trying it, but it's more like, okay, let's throw a bunch of shit in a fucking little fucking keg and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think I mentioned it earlier. You know, a couple episodes ago, when I was in Philly, I had Victory's like bitter on cask at the local 44 bar, and it was just a fucking bitter. I'm like, this is really good.
And that's Joe freezing, because Joe freezes so often. So we're going to talk about like beers that are going to be rising and falling and all that fun stuff. My assessment if you listen to all this stuff or you skipped ahead, regardless, Belgian beers for me, or Belgian influenced beers, because I shouldn't say Belgian beers, because you have to be a Belgian beer to come from Belgium. But Belgian influenced beers is going to be the thing that I talk about. But what Joe was talking about was...
Yes, before I made it over an hour before I crashed.
Congrats, buddy. So big. So big.
But anyway, I think before I got cut off, I very much appreciated this is just a plain bitter, how it was, probably still is served like in England. There's nothing, no funky shit added to it, no fruit, no nothing. It's just a base style of beer. And I think I've said it before, maybe just in talking to you, or even on the podcast, you know, if a brewery can produce something subtle, if they could produce very subtle flavors, not something big and over the top, that's starting to impress me more than we're gonna put out something that's such an in your face beer. It's hitting every spectrum. If you could just do something that's subtle and almost unassuming, that impresses me. And even in my own homebrewing, if I could pull something off that's not something big and bold, I'm more impressed with myself doing that.
I totally 100% agree with that, but, and this is me being turned on, there's a lot of people that mistake subtlety, well-made subtle beers with just okay beers. Like there's so, and that's the kind of the other side of the spectrum when it comes to your whole saison and that kind of shit. And people are like, oh, blah blah blah, I made a saison, I gotta go pick it up and be like, is it good? Do you know what I mean? Like, is it fucking good? And like, just because they made it doesn't mean it's good. Like, there's so many like subtle, nuancy beers. Perfect example I touched on earlier, Orval. Like a lot of people, like last night I had my first Orval in 15 years. For the first fucking 5 years I drank beer, I was like, I tried it. I was like, fuck it. I'm like, I just don't like Orval. And then like last night I was like, you know what? Like it's been fucking 10 to 15 years. I don't fucking know. I'm like, I haven't had one. I'm like, try one. You know what I mean? Try it because it's been fucking a long time. Yeah. And I drank it and I was like, it's still fucking Orval. I mean, like it's nice. If you handed me Orval on a fucking golf cart while I was playing golf, and you said, here, drink 9 of these, I'd be like, awesome. It's cool. It's water that's flavored in a way that's kind of cool for me. But other than that, it doesn't work. But at the same time, there's going to be droves of people who go, oh, you don't understand the subtle nuances of Orval. Be like, no, I'm not. I understand it, and it's not subtle. Well, it is subtle, but it's in its nuances. It's just not fucking good.
Yeah, and I think where I'm going is the well-made. So, like at the end of the day, you know, when a brewery pulls off something that's subtle, I'm saying you're making something very well. You know, like you guys have process for this beer down, and you know, good job.
But that's the problem.
It's
harder. It's harder to find.
Assume people. You said it yourself. You know, people just assume that subtle means good.
The problem is, fucking, there's so many shit beers to weed through. So, like, if a brewery's gonna make a subtle, decent beer, it has to be known. You know what I mean? Like, there's so many. Like, if I want to try a good double IPA, which I could probably count on my fingers and fucking toes, for me, not everybody else out there, or for me, you know, like I have to weed through like 20,000 of them. You know what I mean? So it's you're talking about
even just IPAs in general. You know, to get.
Well, I don't want to pigeonhole it that small. I want to go double IPA because, like, you know, you can do it with any style, but I mean,
you really can.
but that's the thing, though. I don't. I do, but I don't. Like, to me, to weed through, like, I can count over 100 Belgian beers I love. I can count over 100 English barley wines I love. I can count over whatever I want, but I can't. I have a hard time going over 10 with double IPAs. So it's that, but there's way more double IPAs than there are Belgian darks and fucking English barley wine. So you're taking a style, and this is subjective to the T, but you're taking a style that I can find like 10 that really. I'm not talking about like. I'm talking about blow me away. You know what I mean? There's a difference. You know. So you're taking less than 10 that blow me away, but there's millions of them. And then the other way, I can count 100 that blow me away, but there's 20,000 of them. Like, that's the difference. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's so unappropriately weighted in one direction. Doesn't even make sense.
I think we've touched on it before. You know, I like putting out an IPA now, and I said that they're probably going to start falling off, but there was a good few years where an IPA was basically instant money for you. Even if it wasn't very good, there's the people that always look for the new IPA, whether you're a well-known brewery that's now tossing your hat into the IPA ring, or you're a new brewery that's starting out and seeing that shift of literally everyone is looking for an IPA, and all you need is one person to say this IPA is amazing, and now it's trade bait, you know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I see I pulled a U and lost my my train of thought.
Yeah. Pulled a me. I love when people pull these.
Yeah. I think, you know, we've said it before. I think a pretty decent shift is going to come into more yeast-driven beers, and I would even say from a brewing standpoint, I think eventually people are going to start realizing that, you know, this beer may have a ton of flavor, but it's fucking shitty. It's still a shit. Like, it may have a lot of flavor, but it's still a shitty beer. Like,
well, that's the whole thing with the barrel age thing. Like, a lot of people are like, barrel age this, barrel age that. Like, sure. Like, to me, barrel age is like putting sugar or garlic in something. Like,
yeah.
Yes, there's beers that take that and do the science and blend and make shit fucking fantastic. But at the same time, there's like, barrel age it. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Yes. If you take a
a
mediocre beer and barrel age it, it's probably going to be better. But it doesn't make it a great beer. You know what I mean? Like, do the fucking math.
Yeah, that's another. I think now that's going to be the almost instant money kind of thing of like, oh, we've started a barrel program. It's like, well, you have no good beer. Like, you just started it up yesterday, and you're already, we know nothing about your regular product, and now you're barrel aging stuff. Like, I think eventually, like, the wool can only be pulled over people's eyes for so long before they realize that the base beer itself is not good.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's companies around here who shouldn't have existed more than fucking 6 months that are around for like 5 years. So, and this is the thing that I think most people, myself, you, and everybody else fucking forgets. The general public is fucking retardedly dumb.
No, I know. People, Look at the guy that there's one person who is in charge of what can and cannot go on to beer labels, and he thinks you are an idiot.
Well, I am an idiot. I mean, in the grand scheme of things.
Would you misconstrue the King of Hearts playing card as saying this beer has health benefits?
Of course, I would. Well, I wouldn't have any reasonable. No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, I think there's eventually going to be a shift, and what's going to come up are beers that are actually well made. You know, nothing against any brewer out there, but eventually people are going to go. There's all the yes, this beer has every flavor under the sun, but I don't know. You know.
Oh, you know what the worst part about beer in general is when it's frozen. And there's 3 things in my life that I hate that are frozen. Frozen beer, frigid women, and frozen fucking Joe. Because Joe decides to do this whole fucking podcast thing from an iPad, which freezes more than Antarctica, I think it is. I think maybe probably kind of close to there. At the same time, you know, it is what it is. It's almost like a break where we're like, okay, Joe is going to freeze. So continue, Joe.
Yes. So it basically, I'm just rehashing what I said before. I think eventually people are going to realize that, yeah, you could have as much bold flavor as you want, but if the beer isn't made very well, it's not going to. What does it even matter?
That would make sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, man. What else we got here? I don't know. I'm struggling.
I don't know. I think we're
seriously like an hour and change. That's about it. Yeah. We're running out of topics, baby.
We're
running out of topics, baby. Go ahead. Sorry.
No. I mean,
well, to break it down,
we've kind of covered. Yeah.
To break it down in its core sense, styles that I think are rising or falling. Okay.
Yeah. Let's do that. We kind of bounced all over the place.
Yeah. Make it pure. Just what I think. Okay. IPAs, like IPAs in general, double IPAs, triple IPAs are falling now. First, the prerequisite for that, they're falling because they're so popular. They'll never fall out of favor, but they're waning in popularity. So, like, let's say let's say they were the ceiling at 10, they'll go down to 8, but they're not going to go below that. So, like, they're falling because. Yes, they're a fucking penny stock that was $1 million for 19 years. Now they're actually going down to fucking whatever. So they're falling technically, but all you IPA fucking junkies don't fucking hate me on that. What else is falling? Falling styles. Actually, I'm out of that. I'm trying to think what else. Sugar lambics are falling. People are starting to appreciate. This is the whole sour thing. People are starting to understand what lambics are.
I think fruit beers.
See, I think fruit beers are gaining.
Fruit beers are gaining, but what people would have once called a sour, are falling.
Well, I'm more talking about your Uber
in favor of the more nuanced sour beers.
Yeah, it's like you have your over-the-top Americanized lambics that are like fucking candy in a glass. Those seem to be kind of falling by the wayside. That's pretty. I mean, off the top of my head, that's what I can think about. Styles that are gaining. Let's see. I mean, I think Belgians. Like I said, I was more. Predicting the future, like 15 years or so, but I think you're starting to get a.
You can call that.
But no, I mean I'm trying to get more like now. I think Belgians are
within the next 5 years.
Yeah, it's not now, but it's gaining momentum to be something. Trying to think of what else. Yeah, I mean it's not. Go ahead.
Let me jump into this a little bit as well. I think, as you were saying with your double IPAs and your triple IPAs and all all that kind of stuff. I don't believe that they're going to fall out of favor either. I think what's going to fall down with them are the American style barley wines, because a lot of these double IPAs, your triple IPAs, your super extreme whatevers, you're towing a fine line between being an American barley wine and an IPA. You know, you take a look at your Dogfish Head 120. That's basically even though the label says it's an IPA, that's an American style barley wine.
It's not even an American style barley wine. It's its own fucking complete entity. Because it's just not me.
Which is something that I think we're going to have to talk about it at some point. Styles that aren't styles, that are just their own thing. But I think along the same lines as double IPAs, I think the American style barley wine is going to drop a little bit as well, and in favor for the more malty side of the barley wines. You know, I think more American breweries are going to look and say, yeah, let's do, instead of a super hop forward barley wine, or like big beer, let's just make an English style barley wine.
Well, and that's my off the cuff guess on all of that would be, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but you couldn't correct me because it's not fact, but this is my guess. There's a ton of American barley wines out there. There's a ton of American barley wines that are barrel aged. There's a ton of this, ton of that. To me, it's 99.9% American barley wines are from America. They're from United States born breweries that make crazy IPAs. What they did was they just scaled up fucking recipes they know would work. And they were like, American barley wines. And now they're getting, we're like, wait a minute. When people want to drink these high ABV barley wines, they're really aging them and they're letting them sit for years and years and years till they can drink them. Then they drink them. Why don't we just fucking make a non-hop forward barley wine? Why don't we develop a fucking recipe that is actually fucking normal, that is a fucking barley wine, not an American barley wine, and just produce it to the public? And that's where I see where you're kind of touching on.
Well, yeah, and I would agree with that as well. I would love to see if, Hardywood, for example, does, if they, I don't know too much about them, but if they do a run of the non-barrel aged barley wine, and I would love to try that, because their bourbon barrel aged barley wine is phenomenal.
Fucking the tits. Yeah, but here's the thing,
and I would love to see a non-barrel aged run of that. I don't know if they do it. Maybe it's kind of a limited to Virginia
I actually find that surprising.
What?
Because for this one reason, I love, that. I mean, fucking, we reviewed it. We did it together. The fucking Hardywood Parks fucking bourbon barrel aged barley wine is fucking delicious. But there is a distinct difference between fucking a beer that you make and a beer that you fucking barrel age. So to taste the base might not be fucking epic because it's not meant to be barrel aged.
And you could be right. It could be we've developed this recipe specifically to then barrel age it
I think it is, because it's that fucking good.
Yeah, because it on the flip side of, say Storm King, where we have Storm King, let's now barrel age it. Yeah, there's rare instances where you take a beer that was made for multiple years and go, let's throw in a barrel and see what happens, and it comes out like a fucking magician. Like, let's see, Trode's Flying Mouflon is one. The Trap Quad is another. I could sit here for about an hour and probably reel off maybe like 10. That's what I mean. Like, it's not. I think a lot of the basically any of the barrel works with the barrel aged shit that Firestone Walker puts out. I think those are all basically this beer to then barrel age it.
And that's true. But at the same time, they have a fucking like group of like 20 fucking blenders come in and fucking scientifically
I'm not
break
talking about the
down.
anniversary beer.
What are you talking about? Just their
anniversary
base
beers. I'm
stuff?
talking about like their base barrel age stuff, like your
They have,
Cialis and your
but
your
they have
Parabolas
a
and shit.
fucking blender on call for all that shit. It's not like they're just doing it for the anniversary beer. I'm not saying this as upfront as to where they're like have like 19 dudes, but I mean, there's a science to like. There's a lot of companies go like, for perfect example, I'm gonna put it this way: Weyerbacher. A lot of their base beer and barrel aged beer were kind of like their base beer was really nice, if not excellent, and then their barrel aged beer was excellent. You know, it was really really good. And then Sunday Morning Stout comes out, and you could tell there's a marked fucking difference. They had to get somebody come in and fucking figure shit out. They didn't just stumble upon that. You know what I mean? Like there's,
and I'm not saying that it's stumble. We're talking about beers that are developed to then barrel age. You know, instead of having the base beer.
But that's my thing. Like you're talking about having like Storm King, like they put that in there, and they had the beer that I forgot that you mentioned that I had.
Yeah, and that's the difference. I like instead of having the base beer already, base beer is available. You know. But
what you're cutting out there, so that's why I'm talking.
I said,
right
what's
now.
like instead of having Storm King then is barrel aged and now becomes Dark Intrigue. You know,
what I'm saying is there's two different ways to go about it. You have a base beer that tastes a specific way. You put it in a barrel. Actually, there's more than two ways to go about it. You have a base beer you don't want to put in a barrel, and you just wing it and hope it comes out right. Then you have a base beer you're going to put in a barrel, and you actually have scientists break down like the flavor and profile of the beer, what the flavor profile of the barrel is going to impart on that beer, and then put it together, which I don't think most people do. And then you have the person who formulates a beer to go into a barrel specifically. Like there's more branches off that tree, but that's kind of the generic where I'm coming from.
And I think that's what we're both kind of getting at in a way. You know, instead of, you know, like if you bring Firestone Walker back into the equation, is there a readily available base beer that we can say was Parabola? You know, if you look at the only thing that I could think of in the Firestone Walker line is Velvet Merlin. Is they're just seasonal oatmeal stout, and then they barrel aged that, and it's Velvet Merkin. You know?
Yeah. Well, regardless. I don't know what I was going to say. I was going to try to make a joke right there, but I just didn't have anything to land properly. So, second. So, yeah. I mean, I think we're both kind of like skirting the edge of what each other's saying. At the same time, we're arguing against each other.
I think we're both arguing against each other with the same point.
Yeah, pretty much.
We're like, pretty much. We're in the same room and saying we're not in that room.
Nah, there you go.
That's basically what we're doing.
And I've never done that before.
No,
never.
Fuck that.
Okay, so what else we got? We got anything left, or are we done?
I think that's good. I think we actually covered what our ending topic was supposed to be. So.
Yeah, so we covered trends in beer. We reviewed
trends in beer from a different aspect than our actual trends in beer.
Yes, like a very kind of like haywire kind of whatever. And then we reviewed Victory Storm King, and then we dipped back into just pretty much we talked about barrel aging and a bunch of other shit and future trends, but just kind of dipped into like, hey, Sours and Saisons and Belgians and then barrel age, fuck you.
Yeah, and then we argued a bit, and it was
that makes for better television if this actually was television.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hope you enjoyed, one person that's watching.
Oh, but actually, we're up to 5. We're up to 5 viewers.
Holy shit!
Yeah,
Whoa.
and yeah, we're kind of big time. I thought I smelled.
Time, wow.
I thought I smelled rich mahogany for a half second, man. I'm gonna tell you right now. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of Love Beer Radio. Yeah, if you want to find future episodes, go to our Massive Beer Reviews on YouTube. Not Instagram, iTunes and Stitcher, Love Beer Radio. If you'd like to check me out, Matt, Massive Beer Reviews, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Untapped, all that fun stuff. And if you'd like to check Joe out,
you'd find me and as well as Amanda on nepabeerreviews.squarespace.com and myself at NEPA Beer Reviews on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Hopefully you gleaned some kind of information from it. And yeah. Well, who knows, man? You don't know, man. There might be people out there who are like in Zimbabwe just like tuning in and going, what the fuck are these fucking crazy motherfuckers talking about? You don't know. So, yeah. So, go ahead. You just said you knows?
I said, who knows?
We're going to leave. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the show. Peace.
Cheers.